Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts Nat and Kristen as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
Hello. So today we're going to do something a bit different. At Powrsuit, we strongly believe in the power of reflection, of taking a pause at various times and reflecting on progress, what's working, what's not, and what we might change as a result. And Powrsuit is now 6 months and 3 days old. Our membership network, we launched it on the 20th of March this year. So we thought, what better time to have a bit of a retrospective, a review of our own performance.
Yeah. And we often hear it from people asking, can you just share the odd episode with behind the scenes as founders? So it's a bit of a nice win-win here.
So behind the scenes right now, we are sitting on my couch. We have upgraded from Kristen's daughter's bed to a couch. We still don't have podcast arms. We have our arms cropped up on pillows so that we hold our microphones at the right level. And you actually look fine today. You look like you're dressed like a normal person. I am not. I am dressed in my absolute scummy work from home clothes.
Well, it is Mental Health Awareness Week in New Zealand, and I had a quick webinar this morning, so I had to put my face on for a client here in New Zealand, which was fabulous and went well, apparently. So I've got my face on, but no one can appreciate that listening to this after the fact, but that's okay.
Just know she looks great and I look like a pile of trash. Just imagine that while you're listening.
Natural. You look au natural. So we want to chat a little bit about just reminding everyone of the context of Powrsuit, and we want to go through our highs and lows and then what's next.
Fabulous. Okay, so should we start with idea to launch?
Yeah.
Very, very early stage.
Yeah.
What were the first steps we took to turn this idea of Powrsuit into the reality of Powrsuit?
Well, it was about a year ago, and we had these early ideas of, we knew the problem. That's the first kind of thing, is we knew there was a real problem as evidenced in all the gaps in the workplace. We'd spoken to 100 women at that point to really understand the barriers and challenges they were experiencing in the workplace. And so how to solve it was the big question. How to actually go about solving this problem.
How do you close the gender leadership gap?
But we thought, let's start with content. It was the easiest, quickest way to get something out into the wild. So about a year ago, we launched our newsletter.
No, that was 2 years ago probably now.
Oh my gosh.
A year ago, we'd just launched our pilot. We were in Denver Startup Week this time last year.
Oh my goodness.
So fast forward a year. Rewind a year.
Are you kidding?
No.
What?
We have been unemployed for 2 years now.
Great. Good. That's very helpful. So that's right. We were testing, so this is 2 years ago, and that we were doing this. And the first thing we did was opened up a MailChimp account and started to push out content. Yeah. And just to see what was interesting, what kind of topics, what was content and small practical actions that would help some of these challenges and barriers.
Big believers in efficiency. We take the same approach to what we teach, to what we do. So we're very much about experimental mindset, put something out in the world, iterate, learn, change, improve, and try the next thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then we launched this podcast.
Probably 6 months after.
Yeah, International Women's Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what month are we? It's been over a year of our podcast now?
Yeah, it probably has been. I don't know, you know how many eps there are. But all of these things...
81, this is 81.
Yeah, so it's been over a year. Wow. Yeah, a year and a bit. So all of these things are little steps. We try something, we iterate on it. We try something, we iterate on it. And even the membership network itself, 6 months in, probably looks quite different from day one. Day one, we didn't have a great onboarding process. We sort of were relying on the early adopters to help us grow and build a lot of stuff. And we're about to have our first mini masterclass delivered by someone who isn't us. So every month, there's something new and evolving as we learn what works and what doesn't, and how to maximize value. We keep changing what we do.
Okay, well, my question to you is, now let's go back 1 year, not the 2 years, which I helpfully did. We'll go back 1 year now. What were some of the initial challenges we faced when bringing Let's Go, Powrsuit, pilot, all that stuff to life about a year ago?
I think the biggest thing is we have a really audacious goal to close the gender leadership gap. we knew by then how much impact we had on women and that there was demand. What we weren't sure of back then is how to prove benefits to organizations. Like, we know that the diversity wins. We know that, and everyone kind of knows it. And I just got off a call this morning where he was repeating the same thing. We all know it, but what organizations tend to want is a tangible and immediate return on investment. They want to be more productive, increased retention, all of that sort of stuff. And we were completely unproven. We could pull on our experience with our last startup, which gave us a lot of authority over, we're not just a fly-by-night couple of women trying to do something. We actually really do know what we're doing. But we couldn't say with hand on heart to anyone what we're doing works, which makes it really hard to sell to, you know, like we're just another piece of noise.
I remember getting off a call raging. I got off a call with a bank who shall remain unnamed, and I was raging because, of course, by then our success metrics or our evidence of impact have always been the same. It's just we didn't have data. We were so new. And I remember coming off a phone call and they said, well, how many women have progressed in their careers or been promoted? And I just know anecdotally we were already having huge impact into women's lives. But the fact that it was almost not asked in good faith. It was one of those doubters on the phone call. So of course they're going to find something. And I just remember raging after that. But yeah, that's highs and lows.
For anyone who's interested, 6 months in, 28% of Powrsuiters have made a tangible progression in their career, be it pay rise, promotion, new job. So
which I've gone back and sent to this person.
Oh, great. PASAG. Hashtag PASAG.
No, it was just ag.
Yeah, we like to cut the pass out of ag.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go highs and lows. What has been the biggest surprise for you since launching?
The biggest surprise for me, and I check myself, and I remember saying this to Kyla, within 3 weeks of us launching the pilot programs and really starting to push out the brand of Powrsuit outside of the newsletter, I just remember saying to her, like, isn't it amazing? You can just push this brand and this dream and this vision out into the wild, and voila, you have a business. Like, people will pay you to solve their problems. And that's always been really shocking to me that we, like little old us, have the power to do that. Everyone has the power to do that. But it just surprised me at the time of, like, all of a sudden, just because we had a LinkedIn page and we had, I don't know, we just looked a little bit legit. It was like a business and people were giving us money. And I was like, amazing. So the biggest surprise has been the fact that we actually have a relatively well-known brand now.
Yeah.
And when we talk to people, they know the space we play in. They know what we stand for. They know we add value. And it's like, we've done that?
Yeah.
That is a big surprise. Like, we've done that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It is weird. It's also when people say to us, like, oh, who said the other day, oh, do you have a research team working on your podcast and newsletter? And part of me wants to be like, yes. And I and avoid the fact that it's us. But it always makes me laugh.
Yeah, we have to check ourselves if we've, like, given birth to something.
I mean, this is the first time I've given birth.
Well, no, because you did it with
We've given
a few
birth,
brands before.
I give birth to companies, but
it is
children.
it is something, isn't it? It's like, it's the barriers to entry are low. Like, people can actually go and do incredible ventures these days. And yes, it's hard work, and yes, ups and downs, which we'll get to. But you can do it. It's doable.
Yeah, that's so true.
On that, Nat, what has been a major success in your eyes?
Oh, there's been so many. I think for me, the big one is getting our first Australian and hopefully US partners. And I could rave for hours about the successes our members have had because, as our good friend would say, Rach would say, we're basking in their reflected glory, and I love that. But I think for this business, I think starting a company from the bottom of the world, there is so much prejudice against you. There is you're a tiny island, there's the geographical businesses, we know we need to press the flesh, people automatically put you in a bucket. So if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, we are not New Zealand only. And so actually starting to see going from 100% Kiwi when we started to now now 90%. So over the last month or two, we've really ramped up international memberships. And for me, that is just like, it's almost what you said about we did it, is we've now created an exporting business that is a global platform. And our very first conversations about Powrsuit was how important, how critical it was to create a global movement to close this gap around the world.
Yeah.
And so we kind of seen it now a little bit.
Great.
Do you have one?
No, I'm happy to go on. Well, of course I do.
Do you want to do the
happy
flip side, the doubt? What's the
Yeah,
doubt?
I'm going to do the moment of doubt.
I'll be positivity, you be pessimist.
No, because there's still more positive questions to come. But moment of doubt is when I have noticed with myself through this journey that I am very, and actually I did notice it with Hatch, and you'll know that, is that I am guided by my emotions. And when we have wins, because I have that strength, Gallup, Clifton strengths, one of it is competitive. And so when I feel like I'm losing, everything is bad. And when I feel like I'm winning, everything is good, which is why I like when you win awards, Nat. And because
and
then
casino night.
everything is good. And so as a result, my emotions are very roller coastery in this ride. And when I have a bad week of people saying no, we are in the business of, I suppose, rejection, and we get more rejections. The annoying thing is they're quiet rejections. They're people kicking the can. They're not your forced no's. And that's what, for anyone who's getting into sales or needs to sell something, you're looking to force a no so you can move on and spend your time on someone else. But you get a lot of fake rejections or non-rejections. But we're in that business. So let's just say we've had a whole week of no traction. That's when I start to doubt, not us, not our vision, not this business, but it's like the stress of this thing comes crashing in, and that's when I go down. And honestly, all it takes is like one yes on a Friday, and like all of that doubt is gone, and my life is very different in my head.
Yeah, no, I get that. I see that.
Yeah, you do see it.
Well, it's the fear. I literally see it, but it's also that unknown. You don't know when it's going to turn again. So you're like, is it a
the crazy
short-term?
thing is, though, it does.
Yeah.
And so it's like why I let myself go through that. And you know, anyone with roller coaster emotions, it's like, why do we put ourselves through that? Because, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the high.
And I tell my kids that, like, when they come to me or when they're sick or when my daughter has migraines, all she needs to hear, I just sit with her and I go, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so I need to, like, do that. Anyway.
This too shall pass.
What about you, Nat? What has been the biggest challenge?
I think there's probably two things. Personally, and I think for both of us, the finance thing has been challenging.
Yep.
Like going from earning money into 2 years now, probably slightly more, of bootstrapping a company. And I often laugh because I feel like people often talk to us about some of the struggles they have. And I sometimes suspect that we make it look easier than it is. And I don't think we intend to. I don't think either of us is someone who acts or tries to put on a front. But it is incredibly difficult to turn the money tap off and to actually go, we are going all in on this, and there is a lot of money going out and not a lot of money coming in at various patches. So I found that really confronting. And then I think from a business perspective, I think the biggest challenge has been, and it was the same with Hatch, that the barriers to access are often really intangible. So really trying to figure out, what are the barriers? Like, what is the things that's sitting between all of you who are listening right now and all of you having a Powrsuit membership? And because y'all don't tell us all the time and people are polite, we have to spend a lot of time guessing and testing and figuring it out. Not to blame you, but kind of blaming you. Hashtag PASAG. And so like, we know that there's fears now around getting professional development budget, and it's often complicated and hard. We know that women don't always identify as leaders, but we also don't want to identify as too junior. And so there is a very happy middle ground that we haven't quite found yet. We know organizations believe they have great leadership programs, even though their women come to us. And so we know all of these things. And then each of those barriers we have to address. And when you talk about us being in the business of rejection, I think we're also in the business of identifying and busting through barriers. And that is relentless. And every time you get through one, you open up another window or a door, and then you find another couple, and then and so it's just constantly doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What about your biggest high?
Biggest high has been, it was last week, and because don't forget, I'm like on a weekly roller coaster here, and that was a high last week. So recency effect is that I got on 2 phone calls, and we are really honing our sales pitch. And when I pitch Powrsuit now, I had people on the other end of the Zoom meet nodding. And I'm like, that is such a win when finally we get to the point of getting past those blank stares and past the, but what about the men? And what about this objection? And you just have people nodding and they're like, I have been looking for this.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, oh my gosh, we're getting close.
Yeah.
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 Love that. Okay. How about, has anything turned out differently than you expected?
Well, we actually spoke about this a few months ago about the power of positivity. And I think it is a very hard discipline to get into. And I've been trying really hard to imagine what success looks like. Imagine a world where the gender leadership gap has closed and we have grown Powrsuit. And so I actually find, weirdly, despite preaching that and spending a lot of time practicing on a small scale, that when things turn out well, I'm often really surprised despite my best intentions. So I think realizing, so that's probably a big one. Actually, some things have been easier than I expected. I feel like we've gained a lot more awareness and traction than I think I believed we would so early on.
Yeah.
But I also know we've put the work in and we kind of know how to do this. So, yeah.
One foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Everything always turns out differently than we expect, but often better. So that's great.
Yeah.
Any feedback?
I want to share that I spoke with someone last week that went through our podcasts and possibly some of our content on our website about strengths and superpowers. She is also a member. She went and took all of her learnings. She watched a mini masterclass on personal brand, took all her learnings, went into an interview. She said it was the first interview she had done in 11 years, first formal interview. She said she absolutely nailed it because she could hone in on what she was doing, who she was, the value she could add, had this incredible conversation, was authentically her, and she got the job. She got the job.
It. And Jito, that's one of the greatest joys of what we do is we actually get messages like that
all the time,
multiple times a day probably now. And you just hear these incredible stories of members succeeding and through just those little nudges and turning up and making those little investments in themselves.
Yeah, I love that. Now, Nat, we're going to finish off. What's next and what are you most excited about?
I am very excited about continuing to grow internationally. I think that is really, really exciting to me. I'm also excited that we are about to launch monthly pricing. We've got all the mechanics basically set up. So if you are someone who wants to try Powrsuit and doesn't want to commit to a whole year, sign up for a month first. That will be probably available this week. So head back to the website. I'm also thoroughly excited to hit 500 members. So I'm very excited about hitting 1,000 and hoping we can do that in less than 6 months because that shows we are speeding up. I'm excited about so many things.
Yeah, good.
Do you have anything?
I'm excited to close more sales. I think we've got a lot in the pipeline and I'm excited to learn how to get them from people going, this sounds really great, to actually the check being cut. Yeah. That's exciting. I think once we start to solve those little things and get that machine going, that's very exciting. Thank you everyone for tuning in with just a little mid-year check-in, even though I got my dates terribly wrong up front, and looking forward to another one around Christmas time. Thank you so much for listening and we'll catch y'all next time.
Bye.